We are World 6 Team 4 and this is our audio presentation. I am going to start by introducing our marketing strategy. Initially we started with a competitive competition-based strategy. The idea of this is to introduce a pricing method in which a seller uses prices of competing products as a benchmark instead of considering own costs or the customer demand. An advantage of using competitive pricing is that selling price should be in line with the rivals, so pricing should not be a competitive disadvantage. And as there were many uncertainties about our market, we felt pricing was one element we had direct control over. An example of our strategy in action was in period 2, Dunhit was repriced to $450, reduced by $100 to be in line with competitors' prices. This strategy alone was not successful, so from period 5 we introduced a new market-driven strategy, which, according to Day 1990, is gaining understanding of the market and how it is likely to change in the future, which as a team we felt was very applicable to this simulation. Although we realised too late the importance of the studies, we did everything possible to regain a competitive advantage. In period 6 we effectively used the product attribute perception study to ensure Darwin met the target market's criteria. In conjunction with this study, we decided to invest a considerable amount in advertising. We also invested in training to ensure an efficient sales force. This perceptual map highlights that Darwin accurately met the demands of the late majority, price and speed preference. This chart demonstrates the market segments we targeted and why. Initially, we targeted Dragnet at the general consumers as they had a high projected growth of 23%. And we targeted Dunhit at the early majority because of their late high projected growth of 21%. In the latter periods from 6 onwards, we had changed our products and we had also changed our target segments. Darwin was targeted at the late majority, which had a projected growth of 15%. Dougal was targeted at the early majority, which had a projected growth of 14%. And finally, Dunhit was targeted at the early adopters. In hindsight, this may have not been a good decision as the market was becoming saturated and the growth rate was only 2%. This graph shows an overall picture of our net contribution standings throughout the simulation. We dipped during period 4, but having realised how to use the formulas and the studies effectively, we had a huge increase. This is a brief summary of our decisions throughout the simulation. In period 1, Dunhit was a success with a gross profit of $9.4 million. We increased training to 17% of salaries for sales force, as an effective sales force is necessary for the introduction of new products. In period 5, Donut made a loss of $2.4 million. This was due to an inaccurate R&D for the product. We invested $5.9 million into 2 R&D projects. In period 9, we increased sales force to 53, almost double the previous figure. We successfully sold out of 2 products, Dougal and Darwin, eliminating holding costs. Our main successes were the launch of a successful R&D project for Darwin and Dougal through the use of the product attribute perception study and the variation in segment ideal point graph. In period 9, we finished with low holding costs. This was a planned inventory strategy to prevent an overproduction of the product to reduce costs. We moved from 6th to 3rd place in net contribution by period 9. Although our cumulative net contribution was low, it is evident that we were improving. From period 6 onwards, we are accurately able to interpret consumer perceptions, resulting in the success of Darwin and Dougal. We also had a competitive sales force and staff excelled as a result of training and investment. Our main failings were, at the beginning of this simulation, we ineffectively used the formula for calculating production. For example, in period 4, Donut had holding costs of $2.3 million as we had overproduced. We also sold out of Darwin in period 7. And Dougal in period 8, losing out on revenue. Due to a lack of funding, we did not invest sufficiently in advertising, therefore not utilising the 172.5% potential increase in sales for Dougal and Darwin if advertising had been doubled in period 6. There was a potential to increase sales by 20% if we doubled sales force. However, we did not utilise this until the latter periods due to lack of funding. We invested in inaccurate R&D for Donut, which resulted in our unit cost being too high. This resulted in product failure. Finally, perhaps our biggest failing was that we didn't launch Daisy into the star market after a successful R&D project. We now know that the team from our world that did launch into the star market gained 100% market share and made high profits. Market share. Primarily concerned with profit as opposed to gaining a significant market share, this was a huge oversight on our parts, and as we now know, the market share is fundamental to making a profit. We allowed our market share units fall from 18.2% in period 1 to 12.1% in period 8. In hindsight, a better approach would have been to do a new R&D on an existing weaker product, in this case Dragnet, before creating a new product, Donut. As a result of applying this approach, the importance of purchasing and utilising various reports vital to good decision making would have been highlighted earlier in the process. Things that we would do differently are that we would launch Daisy into the star market. We would delegate tasks more effectively within our group. We would focus on being proactive as opposed to being reactive, as we found ourselves being market followers for much of the simulation, and we would aim to be market leaders. We would also employ a larger sales force, as it was not until the latter weeks that we saw the benefit of this. Finally, we would reprioritise our advertising budget in that we would allocate more money to it from the onset. The strategic marketing process in real life. Target real market segments. Focus on one specific segment at a time. Make a segment-specific offer. Market research targeting consumer preferences. Use your strengths by dividing your team accordingly to their core abilities. Consider the future. Develop a strategy that can be adapted to suit future market trends. And finally, be different. Find your unique selling point or look for a niche in the market. Teamwork. According to Tuckman's teamwork theory, there are 4 different aspects: forming, storming, norming, and pre-forming. Forming is the initial stage when team members are meeting each other for the first time. Storming is when members become more comfortable and confrontations may arise from time to time. Norming is the stage where team members come together, ground rules are set, and routine is in place. Pre-forming. This is where everyone is focused on the task at this stage. Team relationships have peaked with everyone working together effectively. We had strong communication within our team. However, in reflection, we realise now that it would have been more beneficial to move faster throughout the stages, reaching the performing level at an earlier stage. If asked to lead a team in the future, we all agree that delegation is key and essential to achieving goals. The members of our team's performance were as follows. There was consistent attendance at meetings. We communicated via social media, email and SMS. There was active participation from all group members. We took on board the opinions of all team members and ultimately went with the majority ruling. The overall performance of our team within the world was poor, and there are facts and figures to prove this. Our team bonded very well, and we had consistent weekly commitment to the simulation. We are confident that if World 6 Team 4 were to redo the sabre simulation module, the end result would differ drastically, having learned about the process along the way. We would like to take the opportunity to thank you for your time, and we hope that this presentation has demonstrated our understanding of the simulation.